Nobody is watching you right now. No audience, no performance, no one to impress, convince, or explain yourself to. And in that quiet, something happens in your mind that most people's minds never do. You have probably never been told this about yourself. The way you think when you are completely alone, the questions you sit with, the arguments you run against your own beliefs, the patterns you quietly trace in your own reactions. These are not normal. They are not what most people's minds do in private. Psychology is clear on this. True cognitive sophistication almost never announces itself in public. It does not live in grades or credentials or the ability to win an argument. It lives in the moments nobody else witnesses. And if you consistently do these 6 things when you are completely alone, your level of intelligence is far rarer than you have ever been told. Most minds despise uncertainty. They rush to conclusions. They grab the nearest available explanation and seal the case shut, because the discomfort of not knowing feels unbearable. But if you regularly find yourself alone, turning a difficult question over and over without demanding an immediate resolution, you are doing something almost counterintuitive. You are sitting inside the discomfort instead of escaping it. Psychologists call this epistemic patience, and it is one of the highest cognitive functions a human brain is capable of. Not because it feels productive, it often does not, but because the mind that can hold a question open without forcing a premature answer is the mind that eventually arrives at something true, rather than something merely convenient. Most people never develop this, not because they are incapable, but because nobody ever told them that not knowing, held carefully and deliberately, was itself a form of intelligence. Think about what most people do with their private mental time. They replay conversations where they were right. They construct imaginary arguments they would have won. They quietly congratulate themselves on the positions they already hold. Now think about what you do. If you regularly find yourself alone, genuinely building the strongest possible case against your own opinions, not to destroy them, but to test them, you possess something psychologists call active self-opposition. And this is not self-doubt. Self-doubt questions whether you are good enough. Active self-opposition questions whether your thinking is accurate. Those are completely different things. One undermines you, the other sharpens you. Every major intellectual breakthrough in history came from a mind that was willing to argue against itself. That willingness to be your own most rigorous critic in private, with no one watching, is one of the rarest cognitive habits that exists. Anyone can feel an emotion. Very few people study their emotions like data. If you find yourself alone and quietly observing, not just what you felt, but why a specific situation triggered a specific response in you, tracing the pattern backward to its root, asking where this reaction actually comes from, you are practicing something most people never access in their entire lives. Psychologists call this metacognition, thinking about thinking, feeling and then observing the feeling from a slight distance. The ability to do this privately, without anyone prompting you, without a therapist asking the right question, or a book pointing you in the right direction, just your own mind watching itself move through experience. That separates reactive thinking from genuinely intelligent thinking, not because emotions are a sign of low intelligence, but because the capacity to observe your own emotional patterns, rather than simply be carried by them, is a different order of awareness entirely. Stop here for a moment, because something needs to be said before we continue. If you are recognizing yourself in these first 3, you have probably also spent significant parts of your life being told the opposite. That you overthink, that you are too in your head, that you should just feel things without analyzing them, that you are too hard on yourself when you question your own beliefs. Those criticisms were not right. They were descriptions of ordinary minds encountering a mind that operates differently. What looked like overthinking from the outside was actually your intelligence doing exactly what intelligence is supposed to do. Working, even in private, especially in private. Highly intelligent people do not just store experiences, they return to them. Not out of nostalgia, not to dwell, but because a more developed mind looks back at an old memory and sees something the younger version of you could not have seen. If you have ever been alone and suddenly realize that something you experienced years ago means something entirely different now, that the story you told yourself about it was incomplete, or that the lesson you drew from it was the wrong one, that is not rumination. That is cognitive flexibility operating at its highest level. Your mind is not just a filing cabinet storing information in fixed folders. It is actively reorganizing, reinterpreting, rebuilding its understanding of the past in light of who you have become. Most people's understanding of their own lives stays fixed at the moment it was formed. Yours keeps growing. Shallow curiosity is transactional. People learn what helps them look impressive, earn more, or solve an immediate problem, and then they stop. But if you regularly find yourself alone, diving deeply into a subject that has absolutely no practical payoff, simply because something about it fascinates you and you cannot quite let it go, that intrinsic intellectual drive is one of the clearest psychological signals of a high-functioning mind. Not because useless knowledge is somehow virtuous, but because the mind that follows genuine curiosity is a mind that has not been fully domesticated by utility. It still moves toward what is interesting, rather than just what is useful. And that freedom is rarer than almost any credential you could put on a resume. Most people commit to a mental direction and follow it to the end, out of sheer cognitive habit. But if you regularly catch yourself mid-thought, recognize that your initial reasoning was incomplete, and voluntarily redirect without ego, you are demonstrating something that formal education almost never teaches: real-time intellectual agility. True intelligence has always lived in private. Which of these 6 felt most like something you already do, but never had language for? Drop it in the comments, because the people reading your comment are sitting in the same quiet, and your honesty is what makes them feel less alone in it.